often hear business people who run say, well, I have business background and that sort of thing. But you have a business background specific to the needs of the community, it sounds like. We want retail in the form of the retail you used to work in, it sounds like.
Yeah, I spent my entire career in retail. I didn't plan on it. I actually started as a computer science major at Tech, and was not a physics fan, so I ended up switching over to finance. So I got a business administration degree with a finance concentration, and I was just working retail while I was going through school. I had no desire. The day after I graduated, Sears put me in their leadership development program and moved me out of state. Sears made me a store manager when I was 24 years old. I was the youngest store manager out of 880 stores. Wow. I was also gray, so people thought I was a lot older. So it kind of played well for me when I got these leadership roles. Then I got recruited to a company called CompUSA. I don't know if you ever heard of CompUSA. At the time they hired me, they had 30 stores. When I left, they had 230. It was a computer retailer similar to Best Buy, but it also had a government division, an education division, and we had classrooms. At one point, I managed 45 classrooms, and I had, I think I had 38 people, direct reports that were calling on small businesses, plus we had a retail store. And then they made me a regional director. So I ended up working for them for about 9-10 years. And I learned everything there. That was a great job. And at this point, I really wanted to, I was done living in big cities, and I was trying so hard. Most of my career, I tried to get back to Montana, and then I'd get promoted, or something would drag me away, just like a lot of people. You know, your career, I always joke that Colt Anderson's career took him away from Butte also. And I was one of those guys, my heart was here, but I physically couldn't get back. And then one day, I got recruited to go back to Sears. They were looking for a district manager from Omak, Washington to Havre, down to Jackson, Wyoming, over into Idaho, Lewiston, Idaho. And I jumped all over that, and they wanted me badly because not only did I already work for the company and I knew a lot about Sears hometown stores, I actually used to spend a lot, my first job was in this area. I used to travel around to all those communities. So I knew a lot about Kalispell and Havre and all these towns from a retail perspective because I had done it 20 years earlier. So that's how I ended back to Montana. If you're familiar with the world of retailer, there's some companies that are closing stores like crazy. And I always seem to pick the one that does that. So that's how I ended up with the restaurant. Was my wife and I got together and said, you know what, if we're going to do this, if we want to stay in Montana, we need to buy our own business or create our own business. Because if not, I'm going to get pulled. That company is probably going to go out of business, and I'm going to have to make some choices, and I'm not leaving Montana again. So that's how we ended up with the restaurant up on Main Street. I am a finance guy, so I've spent a lot of time looking at data. I've met with the Butte Local Development Corporation. When I opened my business, I did a lot of market study on the restaurant industry, how much is spent per capita, per household, by category, fast foods. I really analyzed the business so I could just determine where the sweet spot is. And through that, they've got great data available. So I kind of know a little bit about the retail market anyway. But retail is a symptom of the economic conditions that we have in this town. It's not the problem. The problem isn't retail. The problem is retailers look at data to make decisions, and the data that we present, number of households, average income, and poverty rates are kind of a starting point for a retailer. If they see growth, they're a lot more willing to get in front of that growth and invest knowing that they see those trends. What's happened in Butte is we've had a couple big retailers, Kmart and Sears, which was the same company. And that's not to be confused with the local franchise here because that was a separate company. Right. And the Maid Company, which was the Herbergers. And corporately, those companies were a little bit overextended. Kmart had been closing stores for the last 25 years. It's the longest liquidation sale in the history of retail. They had 4,000 stores. They're down to about 300. And they've been selling off the real estate all over the country. And the Butte store is just going to be one. It was one of the ones. People always think of stores making money if they're hitting their sales goals. Well, that's not a fully burdened expense. There's the cost of the inventory, the cost of the financing of the inventory, the insurance, the marketing, and all the overhead from the corporate offices. When you fully burden a store with all the true expensive, it's really difficult for them to show a profit. So when we look at the data for Butte, there's several things that jump out to me when I look at it. And they're not good. Right now, if you look at average household income, in Butte it's about $40,000 per household. Bozeman is $59,000, Helena is $60,000, and the next of the major cities in Montana, the next closest to us is at Great Falls at $46,000. Okay, so of the major cities in Montana, we have the lowest income. Look at what percentage of the population is below the national poverty number. For the kids from age 5 to 17 in the Butte School District, almost 20% of them live in a household that's below the national poverty number. That blows me away. Then Bozeman's at 7%. Okay, so if you look at that data right there, and that's just at the households. The total number for the population is about 16%. 16% of the population. So this is kind of why I'm here. I've got skin in the game. I own a building uptown. I got a business. The only way this business is successful is if the economy grows. The pie is only so big, and if we slice the pie thinner, it just makes it more difficult for everybody. So I'm not an advocate of going out and recruiting retailers. I'm an advocate of changing the environment that will attract retailers. So I look at the things that happens in our community, and there's some people that they have their heart in the right spot. They have everything's great. They're doing a lot of good stuff. And I'll give you an example. If a business calls the chamber or the Butte Local Development Corporation or the county offices and said, I'm thinking about relocating to Butte, we're really good. We've got programs, incentives. We got some really smart people that can communicate it, and we do a pretty good job of trying to set the hook. But what we don't do very well, we're not casting the bait. We're not proactively, in my opinion, going out and identifying businesses that could relocate back to Butte. And I use the Montana Tech Foundation as a blueprint. In their last campaign, they raised over $40 million from people who don't live in Montana, who have connections, who want to do the right thing and help the community. And they're all over. There are people like me who had to leave Montana, and in some cases, they have risen to very high levels in their organization. And they are in positions that could influence their company. If you go back and look at REC Silicone and why are they here, it's a Butte connection. Why is CCAST here? It's a Butte connection. So my focus would be specific. I know we got a lot of things to deal with in the community, but if we could fix the small manufacturing sector and get more of that business in here, to where instead of paying $9 or $10 an hour in fast food, or even the call centers are pretty entry level, if we could get a bump in that average income, and we go from 40 to 50 on an average income, now I'm a retailer going, that's going in the right direction. My connections, my background, and the stuff that I've done in my career, working in business development, we get the right person out there fishing, we'll be able to get a few more bites. And then back to our people that we have that are already here, I think they do a great job of landing the hook, but we're not casting the bait. Why do we have a lot of potholes? It's because we don't have the tax base. Well, I don't want to pay any more personally, but it would sure be nice to have another person, Sharon. If we had a little bit of growth, the burden on the infrastructure, we got a community that was built for 120,000 people with 30,000 people living here. Trying to maintain that is a challenge. And I know that everybody in city government that works at the Parks Department, works for Public Works, they are so tired of hearing about potholes. Do you think if they could fix them, or if they had the resources, they would? It's not a conspiracy. They're not trying to, not fix your street. They don't have the resources. They don't have the money. Why is it? Back to that economic issue. We don't have as many people paying taxes as we should. So we need more people. We need some growth. Now, I don't think any of us want to become out of out of control like Bozeman. Bozeman's economy is strong, but their cost of living, it's going up faster than the incomes, and there's some people getting priced out of that market or having to commute from Three Forks. So, but somewhere in between that $60,000, $59,000 annual income and R40, there's a good spot there that would attract some other businesses. And that kind of identifies my plan. If you go back and look at all the issues that people talk about, our suicide problem, do you think that that might be somewhat economic driven? Possibly.
Poverty.
Crime, theft, especially the theft crimes. I would think that that has something to do with the economic conditions, and even the drug problems. So not that that's going to fix everything, but I'll tell you what, if we don't do anything, we can't expect a lot of things to change. And I know every candidate in the race, and actually I'm friends with all of them, and they all love Butte. They all have the same goals. They all want economic growth. I don't know if they can do it. I know that I will give it everything I've got, and to me that fixes so many problems in this town that with my background and my resume, I really think I can make a big dent in improving the economic conditions. How's that?